their predecessors. With the onset of 21st century, the entire world has witnessed an era of intense transformation in all areas, whether it is education, global trade and economy, technology, or society. Recently, COVID-19 pandemic is also throwing up challenges for an individual to cope with its impact. Naturally, for such times, a different skill set is required that would enable an individual to cope up and succeed in facing the challenges in the real life, leading to his holistic progress. These skills are addressed as 21st century skills. Now, before I go on to explain the various components of 21st century skills, let me ask you a question. What comes to your mind when I say 21st century skills? You don't have to use the chat box to reply for the same. We'll be sharing a link through the chat box. You just have to click on the link and submit your response. Neetu ma'am, can we share the link on the chat box? Neetu has shared the link on the chat box. You just have to click on the link and submit your response. All right, computer, technology, global, collaboration, experiential learning. All right, 360-degree development. All right, Mitu ma'am, can we go back to the PPT, but they all are kind of mixed up. Skills can be classified. Neetu madam, can I have the next slide, please? Yes. Now, 21st century skills have majorly been classified under 3 categories. Let us start with the first category, learning skills. Next. Now, these skills are required for the acquisition of new knowledge and basically includes 4 components. That is critical thinking, creativity, so starting first component, critical thinking. It means not only to absorb the information that is provided to us at its face value, but rather being able to step back and reflect on happenings. Step back and question the authenticity of information. Find out the source of information and its credibility. Critical thinking is required for a learner to think in a clear, rational, logical, and an independent manner. Now, if I was to ask you, was it only Duryodhan and Dushasan who had an important role to play in the battle against Pandavas? What about the 98 other brothers? Do we even know their names? This is because we accepted what we read in the textbooks or maybe saw on the television and never questioned the information. It is this skill of questioning the information, finding out the logic and the reason behind the same that we have to inculcate in our learners. This is a skill which an individual needs to use throughout his life. For example, If you receive a message from a friend that you haven't talked to lately, saying that she's at Big Bazaar and someone stole her wallet. So if you could transfer a sum of about 1500 rupees on her Paytm number so that she could pay the bill. Now, as it isn't a big amount, some of us may probably think to transfer the same. But those of us who think critically will think for a while and maybe call up that friend of theirs or maybe message her to find out, is that actually her who's sending me these messages, or is it a phishing message? There's another very important, very interesting example that comes over here, all right, which explains how critical thinking was used to solve a very unique problem. It's a very interesting story. Now, there was this man who was a proud owner of a new Pontiac car. He wrote to the customer care that his car behaves strangely at times. It refuses to start whenever he purchases a vanilla ice cream. He felt that there was a ghost in his car who doesn't like vanilla ice cream at all. Now, customer care people thought it to be a prank and didn't bother to reply. But on his repeated requests, they sent an engineer to his place. The engineer actually went with the man for ice cream shopping and observed for himself that the car actually didn't start immediately whenever they purchased a vanilla ice cream. However, for the other flavors, the car started immediately without giving any problem. The engineer, being a logical thinker, refused to believe the ghost story. He kept on logging, all the travels and distances and tried fitting them into a logical framework. And finally, he solved the mystery. Vanilla, being a popular flavor, was kept near the entrance and took a little time to purchase, whereas other flavors were kept at a distance and took more time to purchase. So it was not the problem of the flavor of the ice cream. It was the problem of time. It was basically the problem of vapor lock. Now, this problem of vapor lock basically is faced by the vehicles, which use gasoline, right? So when these people, they returned back quickly after purchasing vanilla ice cream, the engine was hot, due to which the vapor lock was there. And therefore, the car couldn't start immediately. It took some time to start. And when they purchased strawberry flavor and took more time to come back to the car, the engine cooled down and vapor lock dissipated. And the car started immediately. Now, isn't that an interesting story? So we can say that even crazy looking problems are sometimes real, and all problems seem to be simple only when we find the solution with critical thinking. Now, the question is that how this skill can be developed in our learners. The first and the foremost thing that we as teachers need to do is to bring the student out of his comfort zone, as it is only then that they will start or they will try to think differently. For example, we could have an impromptu debate in the class wherein the topics were assigned to the students a week in advance, wherein one student will speak for the motion and the other student will speak against the motion. But on the day of the event, interchange their topics. The one who was supposed to speak against the motion will now speak for the motion and vice versa. And we can give them a preparation time of an hour. The students definitely will feel a little uncomfortable initially, but then they will also try to think differently for the change sides. Another example, another activity or that can be taken up is that these days we are assigning a lot of projects to the students. So at the time of submission, we can ask the students to make a presentation of their work in front of the entire class and also keep a window for cross-questioning, which will again make them think differently. Now, moving on to the next component of learning skills, creativity. It can be defined as the art of doing things differently than the age-old conventional methods. It can be used and applied universally. Well, it's a general myth amongst most of the people, I wouldn't say all, but most of the people, that creativity is only limited to a performing artist, a visual artist, or any person having a good aesthetic sense. Well, creativity, as the word suggests, is all about creation and is not limited to a few people only. It is not a skill that one is born with. All human beings are innately creative, which means we can all be creative on a daily basis and in all situations. For example, let us take 5 chefs cooking the same dish with the same ingredients. Now, do you feel that the dish that is prepared by all 5 chefs is going to taste the same or different? You can use the chat box to answer. Okay, Archana ma'am says no.
No.
Different. Sumana ma'am says different. Neetu ma'am says different. Manisha ma'am says different. Well, you got it right. Absolutely. It's going to taste different, right? Now, why is that so? Because each one of the chefs would have used his or her own innovation, creativity, and prior experience to give this dish a special touch. And that precisely answers, uske rajma mere rajma se tasty kyun? It's not necessary that all creative ideas will be a ringing success. Some ideas might simply not work out, but that's okay, as they will give an opportunity to our learners to reflect on their shortcomings and improvise. Or in other words, they teach us what not to do. Here, I'd like to show you a video presentation made by my students of class 11th. Neetu ma'am, can you play the video? Neetu ma'am, we can't hear anything. You have to turn on your speaker first. Neetu ma'am, we can't hear anything.
Khakra for joint stock company, Miss Ananya Hande for joint Hindu family business, Miss Dhruv Lati for cooperative society, Mr. Ovesi for partnership, and Mrs. Supriya Srineta for sole proprietorship. So, who would like to put forward their voice? I can see a bunch of hand raises. So, let's start with sole proprietorship.
देखिए, आप मेरा हक छीन रहे हैं। मुझे कभी बोलने का मौका नहीं दिया जाता।
One second, Mr. Ovesi. We haven't even started the debate and you're speaking like this. How would you feel if I kick you out from this debate? So, sole proprietorship.
देखिए अर्नब जी, कभी हरिवंश राय बच्चे जी ने कहा है कि जब नन्ही चींटी दाना लेकर चलती है तो 100 बार फिसलती है। उसी की तरह एक सोल प्रोप्राइटर भी होता है। वो अकेला होता है और बड़ी मेहनत से आगे बढ़ता है।
Mrs. Supriya, I have a question to you. Why are you going off topic?
माफ कीजिएगा अर्नब जी, तो एक सोल प्रोप्राइटर के बहुत से फायदे हैं। It gives you full control over the business. Decision making is fast, easy formation and closure, and most importantly, you become the full recipient of all the profit. आपको profit बांटने की बिल्कुल जरूरत नहीं पड़ती। जैसे ये मिस्टर ओवीसी और क्या नाम है, खाकड़ा, उन्हें पड़ती है।
अर्नब जी, can I say something?
Yes, Dhruvi. Continue speaking.
तो सुप्रिया जी, आप लोगों को मिसलीड मत करें। सोल प्रोप्राइटरशिप में सारा प्रॉफिट मिलता है, लेकिन सारा लॉस भी एक ही पर्सन को झेलना पड़ता है। प्लस सोल प्रोप्राइटरशिप में अनलिमिटेड लायबिलिटी होती है, जो शायद आपको पता ना हो, क्योंकि आप तो अंधभक्तों की तरह उसका बस गुणगान ही करती रहती हैं।
How can you say that, Mr. Goswami? This is not acceptable.
Mrs. Srineta, 1 second. Let Dhruvi complete her point.
अनलिमिटेड लायबिलिटी की वजह से क्रेडिटर्स बिजनेस एसेट्स के अलावा आपकी पर्सनल एसेट्स से भी अपने ड्यूज रिकवर कर सकते हैं।
अरे तो कमियां तो हर चीज में होती है, और आपकी कोऑपरेटिव सोसाइटी में ऐसा कौन सा खास गुण आपको नजर आता है?
मैं आपको बताती हूँ। पहली बात, कॉर्पोरेट सोसाइटी की फॉर्मेशन एक सर्विस मोटिव से होती है। ये एक डेमोक्रेसी की तरह होती है, जहाँ पे हर मेंबर को एक वोट मिलता है, इररिस्पेक्टिव उन्होंने कितना ही कैपिटल कंट्रीब्यूट किया। और तो और कॉर्पोरेटिव सोसाइटी में सारे मेंबर्स की लिमिटेड लायबिलिटी होती है और गवर्नमेंट से भी सपोर्ट मिलता है इन द फॉर्म ऑफ टैक्स रिडक्शन एंड सब्सिडीज। आपको ऐसा कुछ मिलता है सुप्रिया जी?
Mr. Goswami, I'm facing some network issues.
Listen, Mrs. Supriya Srineta. Don't play such mind games with me, okay? I'm not a 14-year-old kid here hosting a debate. So,
Well, I'm sure you all will agree with me that these students have used their creative potential to present a drab topic in quite an interesting manner. Now, the video that you just saw was definitely not a one-man show. It was a clear example of teamwork and collaboration, which is the third component of learning skills. Do you all think that we can achieve the desired outcomes when we work individually? Well, absolutely not. We all have our own strengths and weaknesses, and collaboration is the key skill where each individual's strength is utilized to attain the final goal. Like in the video that you just saw, one of the students who's good at creative writing worked on the script. Another one whose forte is dramatics, he worked on the direction. And the remaining two students, they provided technical support to the team to enhance the video. So through collaboration, students learn to shift their focus from me to we. They realize that it is the end result of a project on which they are working as a team that matters the most and not their individual contribution. For example, in any of our school major events, all staff members, teaching, non-teaching, support staff work together as a team to make it a resounding success. Another very valid example of collaboration is showcased by our sports teams, be it cricket, hockey, or football. The team's win or loss is dependent on each player's contribution in the match or the game. Next slide, please. Now, much has already been said about the 3 C's, but it is the 4th C, that is communication, that renders meaning and strength to all other C's, as it is a medium of expression to convey one's thoughts, feelings, ideas to one another. As a 21st century skill, communication not only includes oral, written, and non-verbal communication, but also effective listening to infer meaning and ability to use several forms of media and technology in order to communicate effectively. It is only if a student listens to a discussion patiently that he'll be able to critically analyze the content and question its relevance or applicability. No matter how creative or innovative your ideas might be, but if you cannot present your ideas well, then your creativity will lose its essence. In today's times, we are collaborating more than ever before. In order to work with others as a team, one should be able to pitch his ideas, listen to others' ideas, develop plans, and much more. And for all this to be done in an efficient manner, effective communication is a prerequisite. The main essence of effective communication is to follow the ABC, that is accuracy, brevity, and clarity. As it is rightly said, put it to them briefly so that they will read it, clearly so that they will appreciate it, picturesquely so that they will remember it, and above all, accurately so that they'll be guided by its light. Communication, when not done in an effective manner, can be really disastrous. Now, let me give you an example of a visual communication gone wrong. Next slide, please. Now, there was this washing powder company, which in order to expand its operations, entered the markets of the Arab countries and used this visual that you can just see as a part of its advertisement. To the company's surprise, the advertising campaign did not work that well. Can anyone guess why? You can use the chat box. I repeat, in order to expand its operations, the company used, in order to expand its operations in the Arab countries, the company used this visual. Well, Manisha ma'am, you got it absolutely right. Now look at the picture. The first picture from the left shows the lady standing with a soiled t-shirt in her hands. In the second picture, she's going to wash the t-shirt using the washing powder. And in the third picture, there comes a sparkling white t-shirt. Now, the point here to note is that the pictures have not been numbered as 1, 2, and 3 in the first place. And Arabic as a language is read from right to left. So their mind is trained accordingly. So in that case, if you look at the picture and go from right to left, the whole meaning of the advertisement conveyed through this visual will be changed. So that means at the time of designing, one should not only be focusing on the visual appeal and aesthetics, rather, equal emphasis has to be laid upon the target audience in terms of their social milieu and culture. Now, let's tickle our gray cells a bit and get going with this fun activity. You all must have heard the story of the hare and the tortoise in your childhood days. Now, let us watch this updated version of the same story, which is quite relevant to the theme of today's webinar.
Once upon a time, a turtle and a rabbit had an argument about who was faster. They decided to settle the argument with a race. The turtle and the rabbit both agreed on a route and started off the race. The rabbit shot ahead and ran briskly for some time. Then, seeing he was far ahead of the turtle, he thought he'd sit under a tree for some time and relax before continuing the race. He sat under the tree and soon fell asleep. The turtle, plodding on, overtook him and soon finished the race. Emerging as the undisputed champ, the rabbit woke up and realized that he'd lost the race. The moral of the story is that slow and steady wins the race. This is the version of the story that we've all grown up with. But our version of the story continues. The rabbit was disappointed at losing the race, and he did some thinking. He realized that he'd lost the race only because he had been overconfident, careless, and lax. If he had not taken things for granted, there's no way the turtle could have beaten him. So, he challenged the turtle to another race. The turtle agreed. This time, the rabbit went all out and ran without stopping from start to finish. He won by several miles. The moral of the story? Fast and consistent will always beat the slow and steady. It's good to be slow and steady, but it's better to be fast and reliable. But the story doesn't end here. The turtle did some thinking this time and realized that there's no way he can beat the rabbit in a race the way it was currently formatted. He thought for a while and then challenged the rabbit to another race, but on a slightly different route. The rabbit agreed. The turtle and rabbit started off. In keeping with his self-made commitment to be consistently fast, the rabbit took off and ran at top speed until he came to a broad river. The finishing line was a couple of kilometers on the other side of the river. The rabbit sat there, wondering what to do. In the meantime, the turtle trundled along, got into the river, swam to the opposite bank, continued walking, and finished the race. The moral of the story? First, identify your core competency, and then change the playing field to suit your core competency. The story still hasn't ended. The turtle and rabbit by this time had become pretty good friends, and they did some thinking together. Both realized that the last race could have been run much better. So, the turtle and rabbit decided to do the last race again, but to run as a team this time. They started off, and this time the rabbit carried the turtle till the riverbank. There, the turtle took over and swam across with the rabbit on his back. On the opposite bank, the rabbit again carried the turtle, and they reached the finishing line together. Both the turtle and rabbit felt a greater sense of satisfaction than they'd felt earlier. The moral of the story? It's good to be individually brilliant and to have strong core competencies. But unless you're able to work in a team and harness each other's core competencies, you'll always perform below par because there will always be situations at which you'll do poorly and someone else does well.
Well, I hope that you all enjoyed the story. Now, based on the story, I'm going to put across 4 situations. All you got to do is to name which of the 4 C's that we just discussed has been used in each of the situations. You can write your responses through the chat box, and I request each and every person to participate. Situation number 1. Now, after losing the race, the hare did some soul searching and realized that he'd lost the race only because he was confident, careless, and lax. If he had not taken things for granted, there is no way that Tortoise could have beaten him. Which of the 4 C's do you think did the hare use? Okay, Shelly ma'am is the first one. Critical thinking. Asha says critical thinking. Right. Archana ma'am, critical thinking. Well, I think most of you got it correct. It is about critical thinking. He did some soul searching. He questioned that why did he actually lose? All right. Thank you so much. Going on to the next slide. That is situation B. The tortoise did some thinking this time and realized that there's no way that he can beat the hare in the race, the way it is currently formatted. He thought for a while and challenged the hare for another race, but on a slightly different route. Which C do you think did he use? The tortoise. Okay, critical thinking. Yes, Asha ma'am, creativity. Rukmini ma'am says creativity. Aditi ma'am says creativity. Well, I think he used critical thinking and creativity both. Now, in the same situation, if I was to ask you, with the same slide, if I was to ask you, which of the 4 C's did the hare not use in this situation? When the tortoise challenged him for another race, and the hare immediately accepted. Absolutely right, Asha ma'am, critical thinking. He did not, he should have thought for a while that tortoise, which is next to impossible that if he could beat the hare, how is he so confident and he's challenging me for another race? Absolutely right, critical thinking. Going on to the next slide, situation C. The hare and the tortoise by this time had become pretty good friends and they did some thinking together. Both realized that last race could have been run much better, so they decided to do the last race again, but to run as a team this time. Bang on, Meetu ma'am, collaboration. Absolutely right. Those of you who are writing collaboration, they decided they used collaboration to run the race in a most effective manner. Well, thank you all of you for participating wholeheartedly. Now, moving on to the next category of the 21st century skills, that is your literacy skills. It is rightly said by Alvin Toffler that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. There are 3 components of literacy skills: information literacy, media literacy, and technology literacy. Now, starting with information literacy, given the widespread availability of information today, students no longer need teachers to lecture them on causes of civil war, for example, because that information is readily available and often in more engaging format than a typical classroom. So, for this reason, teachers should use in-school time to teach the students how to find, interpret, and use information, and also how to evaluate the same for its accuracy and credibility. For example, few months back, there was this message doing rounds on WhatsApp claiming that excessive use of sanitizers leads to skin cancer. Now, later on, the same message was debunked by Press Information Bureau. So before accepting any information at its face value and sharing it with others, one must check its authenticity. One must check the source from where this message originated. Only then share it with your friends or family members. Another valid example here would be that while making their projects, many students copy information from the net and publish it as their own, plagiarism, not realizing that the content that they presented as their own could have been protected by a copyright. And in such a case, he or she might run into a legal trouble. So we must educate, we must give these kind of examples to our students and educate them that how to use information, how to interpret information, and how to safeguard their interests while doing so. Now, as far as media literacy is concerned, we all know that students nowadays are really active on various social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. Now here, our job as a teacher is to educate the learners about netiquettes. That is, what to post and what not to. What kind of language to use on these platforms. Because gone are the days when the employers, would make a reference check to get an insight into the profile of an applicant. Now the employer now uses affinity spaces to see what kind of a person the applicant is and how he interacts socially over an online global platform. Mind you, it is the evidences from these social media platforms that CBI is using these days to get to the bottom of Sushant Rajput's case. So it becomes all the more important that our learners are well aware of the do's and don'ts of these social media platforms, precisely to say they should be cyber safe. I'm not going into details of cyber safety, as the same has already been dealt with quite in detail in the webinar of cyber safety. Now, last but not the least, technology literacy. Now, as technology has taken the entire world by a storm, so it becomes imperative for an educator to encourage the learners to explore various online tools and use the same in their day-to-day learnings. Now, let me take a recent example from our school, wherein our school principal identified some new online tools like Flipgrid, Microsoft Sway, OLabs, etc., which could be used to make the online classes more interesting and interactive. Now, a few teachers were given the task of exploring and researching these tools in order to use them effectively in our online teaching and learning pedagogies. While I being the part of this whole project, initially we were a bit apprehensive about using these new tools and apps, but believe me, over a period of time, we started enjoying exploring the newer dimensions of teaching learning pedagogies. And it got better when we all exchanged our findings and researches with one another that led to all of us laying our hands on all the tools thus prescribed. Collaboration, peer tutoring, and brainstorming ideas with fellow colleagues certainly leads to enriching experiences and enhancement of knowledge thus acquired. The same methodology may be used with the learners in order to enhance their learning, as peer tutoring is the way to go. At last, I'd just like to say that definition of literacy has truly evolved. Literacy is not just the ability to read and write, or even the ability to thrive in today's technological world. To be literate in the 21st century, a person must be willing to constantly learn about and adapt to many areas of life, subjects, and environments. Now over to Mrs. Vinaya Pujari, Headmistress Primary, for the next category of 21st century skills.
Thank you, Ruby. That was indeed informative. As per the new education policy, the focus of education remains to create lifelong learners who are socially and emotionally strong. Let us now talk about the life skills required by the 21st century learners. The life skills we as teachers need to develop in our students are the skills required for successfully leading everyday life. The main dimensions of life skills are flexibility, leadership, initiative, productivity, and social interaction, also known as FLIPS. I will try to explain through this presentation as to why these skills are important to be developed in our students. Let's understand why flexibility, adaptability, and resilience skills are so important. You all must have heard the proverb, a tree that does not bend during storm gets uprooted. The statement implies the importance of flexibility, adaptability, and resilience. There are the skills of an individual or a team to adjust or change oneself to best meet the needs of a situation or environment, and the ability to bounce back from an adverse situation without changing the goals and values. That is most important. Let me play a small video to bring the point home.
Morning, everyone! Who does it look like?
It looks like me.
That's right. I want you to do everything that you can to knock your toy down. Who is the strongest in class? Jeron, come on up, please. I'm going to give Jeron a prop, and he's going to try to knock it off the table. Ready, Jeron? Okay, children, who can tell me what it means to have resilience? Yes, Paige?
Resilience means if you make the toy fall down, it'll come back up very, very fast.
Very nice.
I hope you enjoyed the innovative way the teacher used in the video to explain the importance of flexibility and resilience. So what are some ways to develop these skills in students? Here I have some suggestions. As teachers, we need to change their thinking process from, well, that is the way we have always done it, to let's try something new. Make them come out of their comfort zones, because there will be no big achievement without taking a little risk. Encourage them to learn new things and become open-minded. Let them learn from their mistakes and failure. Teach them to choose their responses carefully. Tell them that it is the response that matters the most and not the situation. You can take up some activities to develop flexibility skills in students, like the feedback loop. This activity enables students to learn how to appreciate feedback and respond to it positively. They learn to use feedback to improve what they are doing by finding new ways of finishing the task as suggested by the feedback. You can also ask them to create their own story and post them on a blog. They can also invite feedbacks and reactions through their blogs. This will be a good training in choosing appropriate responses to adverse comments if they get any. Flipped classrooms are the best way of synchronous and asynchronous teaching. There is flexibility for students to watch the video lessons prepared by their teachers, and the teacher uses the classroom teaching to explore the topic in greater depth. You can also use the site ed.ted.com for flipped classroom content making. This is really a good sign. Next is leadership and responsibility. This is another skill our students must develop during their school life. While leadership is the art of building relationships, defining identities, and achieving tasks successfully, responsibility, on the other hand, is about demonstrating integrity, dependability, and ethical behavior by the students towards building safe and positive classroom environment. So, before we discuss about the qualities to be undertaken by to develop these skills in our students, would you not like to know your leadership quotient? It will be fun. Let us check it through leadership meter quiz. Neetu ma'am, this will be later on. I am sharing a link to the quiz. There are 5 questions to be answered in 10 seconds. Tick the option that comes to your mind first and submit. I repeat, submit to know your scores. Remember, you need to enter your first name and last name to access the quiz. I will wait for you to come back in 15 seconds after checking your leadership scores. So wait for me, I'm sharing the link. Here you go. You will have to put your first and last name and you start your quiz and submit and check your scores. We will discuss in just a few seconds. Okay, Ruby, did you try your hand on this quiz?
Just completed, ma'am. It's really nice. I think each one of us would like to see, what their leadership quotient is.
So what was your score like?
Well, I got a 74, and I'm now waiting for the score key to see where actually I stand.
Okay, we will wait for others to join back and then we will discuss definitely. Welcome back. As you all have your scores with you, now let's understand them. Those who have scored between 18 to 34%, well, you need to work hard on your leadership skills. Those who have scored between 35% to 74%, you are doing okay as the leader, but you have the potential to do much better. And those who have scored between 75 to 90%, excellent. You are well on your way to becoming a good leader. Interesting, isn't it? I am sure most of us are giving leadership and responsibility training to our students by making them row monitors, class monitors, house captains, sports captain, head boys and head girls, and the list is endless. You can also take up activities like attempting leadership quiz, roundtable discussions on current affairs, group presentations, mock parliament, organizing team games, especially in case of sports, to develop leadership and responsibility skills in students. The other important life skill to be learned is the initiative and self-direction. Initiative is the ability to act or take charge before others. Self-directedness is a personality trait of self-determination. That is, the ability to regulate and adapt behavior to the demands of a situation in order to achieve personally chosen goals and values. All of you must have read the Panchatantra story of the clever rabbit and the foolish lion. As the story goes, all the animals of the jungle agree to surrender their lives to the lion as per their number, without any resistance. However, the cunning rabbit wasn't giving up. He takes the initiative to eliminate the cruel lion and takes him near the well and tricks him to jump into the well. This story is the best example of initiative and self-direction skills. Our ancient texts are full of life skill and critical thinking based content. The need is to make students read the age-appropriate literature to develop these skills. I will recommend to use Panchatantra stories to be taken up at primary and middle level to develop life skills in our students. Teachers can use activities like Dam Charade, pick up your task, act like a character from your favorite book, and so on. The teachers should also offer opportunities in the classroom where students can write their own critical questions about a particular content. They should be allowed to question the credibility of the content and offer their perspective on the same. This activity is called design thinking and is highly recommended for higher classes. The skill of productivity and accountability is associated with higher quality of work and demonstrating personal integrity. You will agree that students spend nearly 6 hours in school and 1 to 2 hours at home studying. But what we observe is that in most of the cases, students' productivity is average across the globe. Here are some tips to increase the productivity in students. You can teach students how to prioritize work to avoid anxiety due to piling up of homework and weekly assignments. Students can be taught how to make a schedule for study and play and also to follow the schedule. They should be encouraged to take up research projects also. Students should take a proper study break of 5 to 10 minutes to avoid brain fatigue. There should be counseling sessions to encourage students to minimize the use of social media. Here, I want to give more stress on reading to increase productivity. So I would suggest that a teacher can set a particular time for reading books other than the textbooks. The teacher can even choose a book from the library which all can read together in the class. Weekly reading tasks could be set, and after fulfilling the task, the student's name could appear on the class notice board as the star achiever of the week. If we follow some of these activities, I'm sure the student's productivity will increase. Another most important skill to be developed in students is social and cross-cultural interaction skill. As we have observed recently, intolerance and instant gratification are the two most devilish traits demonstrated by the youth all over the world. It is imperative for the educators to tap them young to overcome this problem. The teachers can take up several activities to inculcate social and cross-cultural interaction skills in students to make them globally responsible citizens. Learning to interact effectively is the most important skill. To achieve this skill, the students must know what is the appropriate to listen and when to speak and how to conduct themselves in a respectable and acceptable manner. They should respect cultural differences and interact effectively with students from a range of social and cultural background. They should be taught to respond open-mindedly to different ideas and values. They should leverage social and cultural differences to create new ideas and increase both innovation and quality of work. We at Bal Bharati are trying our level best to expose our students to cross-culture communication and collaborations at early age. Here are the glimpses for you to appreciate the efforts we made.
नोएडा, इंडिया। आपका स्वागत है।
Today I feel proud to hold my national flag in my right hand and equally proud to hold your national flag in my left hand.
The skateboard is my favorite culture, and today I'm going to talk about the book I really reading, the Blue Umbrella. As soon as Vinaya saw the beautiful blue silk umbrella,
This virtual cross-culture exchange has indeed increased the social and cultural understanding of our students for better. There are some other activities teachers can take up, like relay culture. In this activity, the students can be divided into 4 to 5 groups, and each group can be asked to choose one state or culture. When each group must try and pass on something that is uncommon and unique about their chosen culture to the other team. The other team has to do quick research about that aspect of the culture that has been passed on to them and prepare a presentation on what they have learned. This will help students understand and appreciate different cultures. Some more activities that can be taken up by the students are jingle making, rap song making, puppetry, and so on. Oh, okay. Puppet reminds me the activity conducted by the art teacher in primary wing, where she asked the students to make puppets of their favorite cartoon character and speak their favorite lines as jingles. Look at this video that a child has made. And this is how we have used puppetry as medium of skill development at primary school level.
Squirtle Lohara. Come on baby, आओ चले डांस शुरू। जोर से बोले अब तुम यूं में नाचो, नाचो। देखो सबको हिलाता। कभी मैं उछलता हूँ, कभी मैं चलता हूँ, हर दम बेकाबू। रोज मैं करता हूँ नई नई गड़बड़, सबको हंसा देगा स्क्वाटल।
So cute, isn't it? What I feel is that by developing 21st century skills in students, we can make them learn to cooperate, to communicate, to coordinate, to make decisions, to use emotional intelligence, to use constructive criticism, to trust others, and to deliver on promises. These are the skills which are needed by 21st century learners. However, these skills cannot be seen in isolation, but in totality. And all it requires is a solid foundation and dedicated teachers. I'm sharing the link of a small movie that shows the resilience and determination of a teacher. Hope this movie inspires you to take up the challenges ahead. I request you all to watch the movie after the session as it is relevant to today's theme. At the end, I, on behalf of Ruby and myself, take this opportunity to thank our principal, Mrs. Asha Prabhakar, for always challenging our limits and helping us explore new vistas. I also extend my heartfelt thanks to principals of our sister schools. A word of appreciation is due to our Vice Principal, Mrs. Anupama Motwani, for helping us execute this webinar with precision, and to all our dear colleagues who helped us in this presentation, and to all those who are a part of this session today. Thank you once again. I am sharing the link of movie. Please watch it. It is really beautiful.
Thank you, Vinaya and Ruby. The session was very, very enlightening, and I really enjoyed. Not even for a moment I could blink my eyes, and I was listening with so much of elan, and I could see somewhere a reflection of a leader, And Vinaya, you should not have missed while giving the example of resilience, that how a country like Japan, faces earthquakes, and within no time is ready to face again the challenges, the natural disastrous challenges which the country is facing, in terms of uh, how it improves upon its economy, and how the people have been taught to be resilient, in order to face earthquakes and then get back to life. I think the biggest challenge is that of a country like Japan, when we talk of resilience. And it was a
Yes,
very
ma'am.
good session. It was a very good session. I hope we take a lot of lessons home from these sessions. And of course, we are expected to implement in our classrooms and coach and mentor our children the concepts which we are taking back home, from home to our classrooms tomorrow. We must implement. On this note, congratulations to both the teachers, and many more such sessions in the future we would like to learn and listen from you. Thank you so much, both the ladies. A good job.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. I request